The ghost ships of the Templars, and what they carried in secret. In the darkest bend of medieval memory, where kingdoms fell to whispers and truths were buried beneath ash and decree, an unsettling revelation begins to stir. The ghost ships of the Knights Templar vanished from the port of La Rochelle was not an accident, not an escape, and not a myth. It was a meticulously orchestrated maneuver designed to protect a secret so powerful it threatened both crown and church. As the sun sank on that fateful evening, witnesses reported silhouettes of massive vessels gliding silently across the water, sails catching only moonlight, leaving behind a harbor that would awaken to confusion, fear, and outrage. Those ships did not flee. They executed a plan generations in the making. And the question that claws at the edge of history is not where they went, but what they carried that forced the Vatican into a panic that echoes across centuries. Beneath the deceptive calm of their departure, an empire of secrecy unfolded. Locked beneath armored decks were not crates of gold, but documents sealed with crimson wax, relics carved from ancient stone, and manuscripts whispered to contain revelations unearthed beneath the Temple Mount. Truth so dangerous, they could dismantle the foundations of medieval authority. The Templars understood the storm that approached. Kings indebted to them would betray them. The Church, fearful of their power, would condemn them, and Europe would soon become a cauldron of accusations. The ghost ships were not an escape from destruction. They were the vessel of a counter-strategy. They were the ark of everything the Order refused to let die. And as their prows cut through black waters, the world unknowingly crossed into a new era, an era shaped by the things those ships preserved. Imagine the iron discipline within those vessels, knights sworn to silence, captains entrusted with routes drawn only in coded ink, navigators trained to read the sky like scripture. No torch lit their decks, no signal fire revealed their passage. They were shadows within shadows, disappearing into vast waters that erased footprints. This was the moment the Templars transformed from a visible empire of warriors to an invisible brotherhood of knowledge and strategy. Their ships carried not wealth, but the blueprint of their immortality. Every mile they sailed was a defiance, a declaration that the Church could condemn bodies but not extinguish ideas. And in that silence, the Order slipped beyond the reach of kings. Yet history refuses to remain silent. Rumors scattered across Europe like embers in wind. Sightings of Templar sails near Scotland, whispers of secret landings on Portuguese shores, tales of cargo unloaded in the dead of night and carried inland by hooded riders. Some believed the treasure was hidden in tunnels beneath fortified monasteries. Others insisted it was taken across the Atlantic long before Columbus ever dreamed of the ocean. These stories are not contradictions. They are fragments of a plan designed to be unknowable. The Templars did not hide their treasure in one place. They hid it in every place it needed to survive. What chills the spine is not the disappearance itself, but the silence that followed. No shipwrecks, no captured vessels, no recovered cargo, a fleet that vanished without trace, leaving only a void the Vatican could never explain. That void became the greatest accusation in Christian history, proof that the Church feared something far greater than Templar swords. They feared what those ships carried into the unknown. They feared a truth that could not be burned in trials or buried in dungeons. They feared the Order's ability to operate even in death. And now, centuries later, the echo of those ghost ships returns, not as a solved mystery, but as a reminder that some truths were engineered to stay just beyond the reach of power. The Templars may have lost their land, their titles, their public identity, but on that night, aboard those silent vessels, they secured the one thing their enemies could never claim, the right to write their own legacy. This is the Hulk, the awakening of a truth carried through darkness by ships that refuse to die. In the cold breath of a medieval world collapsing under betrayal, the introduction to this forbidden narrative begins with a sensation that feels less like storytelling and more like a summons, the unmistakable awareness that you are about to enter the most erased, most feared chapter of Templar history. The first images that rise are those of the night at La Rochelle, where the wind seemed to carry messages through the shadows, and every ship's sail flickered like a silent omen. There, while knights were being arrested across France, while the Vatican prepared decrees of destruction and kings plotted political gain, another movement unfolded in the darkness. The Templar ships were preparing to vanish, not as fugitives, but as heirs to a plan written long before their downfall. This introduction opens like a corridor of shadows, where each step reveals that the disappearance of the fleet was not a historical accident. It was a masterpiece of strategy, the final breath of an order that refused to die under decree and chose instead to survive through secrecy. As you move deeper into this unfolding narrative, the atmosphere thickens with a sense of tension that transcends centuries. The flickering torches, the muffled hooves, the hurried whispers of knights transferring chests under moonlight, all of it paints a world on the brink of transformation. The Templars, once a public force feared and respected across kingdoms, were becoming something else entirely, a silent brotherhood slipping beneath the vision of those who had condemned them. Their ships became vessels of purpose, carrying documents, relics, and knowledge so dangerous that neither kings nor popes could ever allow them to surface. In this moment, the introduction reveals itself not as a retelling of events, but as a doorway into a decision that altered the course of Western civilization. Each detail pulls you further into the emotional weight of that night. The disciplined calm of the knights who boarded the vessels, knowing they might never return, the coded signals exchanged between captains, the eerie stillness of the water, as if the sea itself understood the gravity of what it was about to swallow. These were not men running from judgment. They were guardians, entrusted with the last fragments of a legacy that could not fall into the hands of their enemies. As the ships pushed away from the docks, cutting silently through the black waters, they carried not fear but conviction. They were executing the last phase of a mission designed to outlive monarchs, Rome, and the passage of time. Further along this introduction, you begin to grasp the implications hidden within their disappearance. The documents sealed beneath their decks contain truths excavated beneath the Temple Mount, maps of distant lands unknown to Europe, financial codes that underpinned the first international banking system, and relics whose symbolic power could shake the authority of entire kingdoms. Their loss, or rather, their concealment, is why their story has remained wrapped in layers of controlled silence. The Church could destroy the order publicly, but it could not retrieve what those ships carried into the unknown. This realization casts a shadow across history itself, suggesting that medieval Europe never truly recovered from what it failed to seize. As the introduction nears its center, a new understanding emerges. The ghost ships were not symbols of escape, they were symbols of transformation. They marked the moment the Templars ceased to be a visible army and became an invisible force woven into the hidden architecture of knowledge, exploration, finance, and myth. What sailed away that night was not merely treasure, it was the blueprint of a future the Vatican could neither predict nor control. This shift in identity reveals itself as one of the most profound acts of resistance in medieval history. By the final breath of this introduction, you stand at the threshold of a revelation that has haunted scholars, kings, and seekers for more than 7 centuries. The disappearance of the Templar fleet was not the end of a brotherhood. It was the beginning of a secret lineage of survival. The ghost ships carried the order into eternity, dissolving their presence into legend while ensuring their influence never died. And now, as you prepare to enter the development of this narrative, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. What the Templars carried away from La Rochelle was not just a secret, it was a legacy forged to outlive time itself. In the first topic of this unfolding narrative, the true architecture behind the ghost ships begins to reveal itself, not as a hurried escape, but as the execution of a long-engineered contingency plan crafted by minds trained to anticipate betrayal. The Knights Templar knew their enemies well: kings drowning in debt, clerics hungry for control, and a Vatican increasingly alarmed by the order's autonomy. Thus, decades before the infamous arrests, the Templars built a hidden logistical network designed to activate only in the face of annihilation. This network was rooted in coded communication, decentralized storage of assets, and naval routes unknown even to allied kingdoms. The night the Church believed would mark the destruction of the Templars instead triggered the ignition of a strategy powerful enough to erase the order from history's reach, while ensuring its most sacred knowledge lived on. The ships did not flee in panic. They followed a blueprint written in the shadows of prophecy and preparation. As you step deeper into this topic, the complexity of their system becomes undeniable. The Templars had established silent ports, discreet harbors used exclusively for covert operations, where no royal official had authority to inspect cargo. La Rochelle was the crown jewel among these locations, fortified not by walls, but by loyalty, secrecy, and the Order's mastery of maritime logistics. Here, chests were transferred not like treasure, but like classified archives. Officers trained in cryptographic procedures handled documents sealed with layered symbols, each requiring different ranks to decipher. Even the crewmen aboard the ships often knew only fragments of the mission, ensuring no one captured could betray the whole. The fleet's disappearance was not a failure of surveillance, it was a triumph of compartmentalization, a demonstration of how an order built on discipline could outmaneuver the combined forces of kings and popes. Further still, the cargo itself was curated with intention. While legends speak endlessly of gold, what truly mattered were the manuscripts transported beneath the armored decks, documents containing knowledge unearthed during the Templars' excavations under the Temple Mount. These manuscripts preserved ancient calculations, proto-scientific principles, forbidden commentaries, esoteric diagrams, and relic records linking the past to mysteries the Church feared would destabilize doctrine. The Order's scholars, educated far beyond the average medieval cleric, recognized the explosive potential of what they discovered. Thus, when danger loomed, these texts became priority cargo, protected not for wealth, but for meaning. Their preservation was a declaration that some truths could not be silenced, even by the Vatican's decree. Meanwhile, the human element behind the mission was equally crucial. The knights chosen to board the ships were not random survivors. They were specialists trained in navigation, cryptography, diplomacy, and sacred custodianship. These were men conditioned to withstand exile, isolation, and the immense responsibility of guarding the Order's final legacy. Their oath extended beyond life, binding them to carry out the mission, even if it meant disappearing into lands where no Templar banner would ever fly again. Their silence was not obedience. It was devotion to a cause larger than the Order itself. As the ships drifted into darkness, they became floating sanctuaries carrying the last breath of an identity the world believed extinguished. This topic also unveils the strategic brilliance in how the Templars scattered their fate. No single ship carried the whole secret. The fleet functioned like a living puzzle, each vessel transporting a piece of a larger revelation. Even if an enemy captured one ship, the knowledge would remain incomplete. The Order understood that survival depended not on a single vault or cache, but on distribution, a method that mirrored their banking system. By dividing the treasure, the documents, the relics, and even the human guardians, they made their legacy impossible to seize in totality. The Vatican wanted certainty. The Templars answered with fragmentation. By the end of this first topic, one truth becomes unmistakable. The disappearance of the Templar fleet was not the vanishing of a fortune. It was the intentional migration of a legacy. The ghost ships did not escape into the unknown. They carried the future of the Order into a dimension where no king, no pope, and no enemy would ever hold dominion. This was not flight. It was strategy, and it was perfect. In the second topic of this unfolding revelation, the silent world of maritime strategy takes center stage, exposing how the Templars transformed the sea from a boundary into a sanctuary. Long before their downfall, the Order invested heavily in naval infrastructure, recognizing that control of the waters would one day determine the survival of their most guarded secrets. Their shipyards were discreet, their sailors trained with military precision, and their fleet managed like a network of floating fortresses. The Templars did not treat the ocean as a route for trade, but as a strategic corridor, a realm where papal influence weakened and the arm of kings could not reach. It was in this maritime dominion that the ghost ships found their true purpose. Under the veil of night, these vessels initiated a movement that would forever entangle the fate of oceans and conspiracies, the disappearance of knowledge into waters that refused to return it. As this topic deepens, the geography of escape becomes part of the narrative. The Templars mapped routes that avoided political borders, choosing instead to navigate through zones of low surveillance, known only to their most experienced commanders. These secret corridors were plotted using advanced navigational techniques inherited from Eastern cultures, methods considered heretical by conservative clerics, but invaluable for survival. The fleet's departure from La Rochelle was not improvisational. It was a rehearsed maneuver calculated to exploit tides, fog cycles, moon phases, and blind spots in coastal defenses. Witnesses later reported that the ships vanished into the light, an expression attributed to the Templars' uncanny ability to use natural phenomena to conceal themselves. What appeared supernatural was, in fact, the result of disciplined maritime intelligence, a mastery the Vatican gravely underestimated. As you move into the heart of this topic, the political and religious implications of their disappearance become unavoidable. Kings expected the Templars' wealth to fall into their hands. Instead, the sea swallowed their hopes. The Vatican believed the fleet would be seized within days. Instead, weeks passed, then months, with no trace of wreckage, surrender, or communication. This failure created panic within the highest ranks of the Church. The Pope demanded reports, bishops issued condemnations, and rumors surged that the Templars had sailed to lands outside Christendom, where the Church had no jurisdiction. Some suggested they headed toward Scotland, excommunicated at the time. Others whispered that they sailed toward Portugal, where royal alliances offered sanctuary. Even more tantalizing legends claimed the fleet crossed the Atlantic centuries before Columbus, establishing hidden colonies that protected their secrets. These stories were dismissed publicly, but feared privately, for each represented a threat to Vatican authority. Closer examination of the fleet's logistics reveals another layer of brilliance. The Templars stocked their ships not for short-term flight, but for extended voyages. Preserved foods, medicinal herbs, advanced tools, water purification methods, navigation instruments, and archives sealed in moisture-resistant containers. Such preparation indicates they did not merely seek refuge, they sought to establish new strongholds beyond their enemies' reach. Their maritime resources were unparalleled. Unlike most medieval ships, Templar vessels were designed for speed and endurance, capable of outrunning or outmaneuvering royal fleets. The presence of elite knights aboard meant they could defend themselves if necessary, but their true strength lay in their ability to disappear before conflict even arose. By the time this topic reaches its final breath, one truth becomes as vast as the ocean they sailed. The Templars turned the sea into their final kingdom. The ghost ships were not relics of a fleeing order. They were the embodiment of a silent revolution, a shift from land-bound vulnerability to maritime invisibility. These vessels carried the order into uncharted waters, both literal and symbolic, ensuring their mission survived where the Church least expected, beyond borders, beyond maps, and beyond the grasp of history itself. The sea did not hide them by accident. It hid them because the Templars commanded it to. In the third topic of this unfolding mystery, the focus turns to the most protected and most whispered about cargo aboard the ghost ships. Not gold, not weapons, but knowledge. To the medieval world, knowledge was more explosive than any sword, more destabilizing than any army, and the Knights Templar had accumulated it in volumes that frightened even the most powerful institutions. Hidden beneath their iconic white mantles was an identity far greater than that of warriors. They were scholars, architects, cryptographers, bankers, engineers, explorers, and guardians of ancient revelations unearthed during their excavations under the Temple Mount. These discoveries, preserved in manuscripts, tablets, coded scrolls, and relic fragments, formed the backbone of the cargo that sailed away into the night. This topic reveals how the Templars understood that the greatest treasure they carried was not material. It was intellectual, spiritual, and potentially world-changing. As you step into the deeper layers of this topic, the origins of this knowledge begin to surface. The Templars spent nearly a decade beneath the ruins of Solomon's Temple, excavating chambers untouched for centuries. What they discovered there, according to suppressed chronicles and scattered accounts, included ancient engineering designs, astronomical calculations, early mathematical frameworks, and esoteric writings that challenged the theological structure of medieval Europe. The Church feared these revelations not because they contradicted Scripture, but because they empowered independent thought. The Templars, recognizing the transformative potential of such material, transcribed everything into coded manuscripts, locking dangerous truths behind symbols, formulas, and layered encryption. What sailed aboard the ghost ships was nothing less than an archive of ideas that could ignite intellectual revolution centuries ahead of its time. As this narrative sharpens, the sheer scope of what they protected becomes staggering. The Templars were among the few groups capable of understanding and preserving such complex information, and they were equally capable of weaponizing it. Their financial codes formed the first international banking network in Europe, allowing transactions across continents. Their architectural knowledge led to the construction of cathedrals whose geometric precision still defies explanation. Their navigation theories suggested awareness of lands beyond traditional medieval maps. Their theological writings posed questions that could fracture the unity of the Church. If even fragments of this knowledge reached rival kingdoms or dissident scholars, it could have reshaped the medieval world entirely. Thus, for the Vatican, silencing the order was not merely political, it was an attempt to control the future. Moving closer to the heart of this topic, The emotional weight of their mission becomes clear. The scribes, scholars, and warrior monks who guarded these manuscripts knew their survival might demand anonymity, exile, or even death. They boarded the ships not as men preserving treasure for themselves, but as custodians protecting humanity's intellectual inheritance from destruction. Their oath went beyond loyalty to the order. It became loyalty to truth itself. Imagine the tension of that moment. Miles of coastline fading behind them, the circle of the temple dissolving into fog, and beneath their feet, sealed chests containing knowledge that could either elevate mankind or plunge it into chaos if misused. It was a burden no knight carried lightly. By the final breath of this third topic, one realization becomes unavoidable. The ghost ships did not simply vanish with wealth. They vanished with the most dangerous commodity of the Middle Ages, forbidden knowledge. The Vatican feared gold because it funded armies, but feared knowledge because it funded ideas, rebellions, revolutions, and the awakening of minds. What the Templars preserved aboard those ships was not the past. It was the future, and they carried it into the unknown, with the clarity that some truths once discovered must never again fall under the control of those who would erase them. In the fourth topic of this deepening mystery, the spotlight shifts to the hidden alliances that made the Templars' escape not only possible, but inevitable. While the Church and the French crown believed they had cornered the order with sudden arrests and fabricated charges, they failed to consider the far-reaching network of loyalty the Templars had cultivated across continents. The order was not isolated. It was interwoven into the political and economic fabric of Europe. Monarchs indebted to their banking system, nobles who owed their survival to Templar protection, merchants whose roots depended on Templar security, and scholars inspired by their libraries formed a web of influence the Vatican could never fully anticipate. These alliances operated in shadows, not in open declarations, creating corridors of cooperation that activated the night the fleet disappeared. In this topic, the truth becomes clear. The ghost ships did not sail away alone. They sailed under the cloak of a conspiracy crafted from gratitude, necessity, and mutual survival. As you step deeper into this layer, the strategic brilliance of these alliances emerges. Portugal, a long-standing Templar ally, offered safe harbors, protection from extradition, and royal endorsement under the future Order of Christ. Scotland, excommunicated at the time, provided sanctuary where the Church's reach could not penetrate. Italian city-states turned a blind eye in exchange for continued financial stability, while maritime guilds in the Mediterranean silently rerouted surveillance patterns to clear the Templars' path. These were not accidental sympathies, they were quiet acts of rebellion against papal overreach. Each alliance represented a fracture in the Vatican's authority, a reminder that the Church's spiritual power did not guarantee political obedience. Through this network, the Templars slipped through Europe's fingers not because they were invisible, but because too many hands were guiding them. As this topic intensifies, the emotional and political motivations behind these alliances become undeniable. Many rulers recognized that the elimination of the Templars would shift the balance of power dangerously toward the papacy. Supporting the escape, even indirectly, became a strategic act of self-preservation. For scholars and monastic orders, protecting the Templars meant preserving access to knowledge. For merchants, it meant preventing economic collapse. For persecuted groups and individuals saved by Templar intervention, it meant repaying a debt of honor. Thus, the alliances were not merely political, they were deeply personal. They emerged from a recognition that the order had served as a stabilizing force in a turbulent world. When the Church turned against the Templars, thousands quietly chose loyalty to justice over obedience to Rome. Moving closer to the core of this revelation, the method of communication that sustained these alliances becomes crucial. The Templars used an advanced messaging system built on coded letters, symbolic inserts, merchant relays, and monastic intermediaries. Messages traveled across borders disguised as trade manifests, medical prescriptions, or theological commentary. This allowed the order to coordinate its escape with precision, ensuring that the ghost ships encountered friendly waters, safe landing points, and supply caches prepared in advance. The Vatican believed it had surprised the Templars. In truth, the Templars had been preparing for this moment for decades, strengthened by a network the Church could neither control nor comprehend. By the final breath of this fourth topic, a profound understanding solidifies. The Templars were not abandoned in their hour of destruction. They were protected by a world that relied on them more than it feared them. Their escape was not the act of a hunted order, but the execution of an international collaboration, built from trust, respect, and shared resistance to tyranny. The ghost ships were not symbols of isolation, they were symbols of unity. Their disappearance was the victory of a brotherhood supported by nations, scholars, sailors, and believers who refused to let the order fall into extinction. And because of these alliances, the Templars did not vanish into oblivion, they vanished into freedom. In the fifth topic of this unfolding revelation, the narrative turns toward the afterlife of the ghost ships, not the mystical realm, but the hidden destinations where the Templars reshaped their identity far from the reach of the Vatican. These destinations were not random or accidental. They were chosen with precision, shaped by geography, politics, secrecy, and ancient prophecy. Legends speak of three primary paths: westward into the Atlantic toward unknown shores, northward toward Scotland where excommunication shielded them, and southward toward Portugal where royal protection awaited under the future Order of Christ. Each route represents a different branch of Templar survival, each contributing to a mosaic of continuity that the Church failed to erase. This topic reveals how the Order did not simply escape, it fractured deliberately, scattering its influence across regions that would preserve and eventually transform the remnants of Templar power. As you move deeper into this topic, the Scottish route emerges as one of the most compelling. Scotland, isolated from Rome due to political conflict, offered the Templars a sanctuary where they could live openly under the protection of clans who valued their military expertise. According to enduring tradition, Templar knights fought alongside Robert the Bruce at Bannockburn in 1314, tipping the balance of one of the most important battles in Scottish history. This union was more than a wartime alliance. It was the birth of a secret lineage, embedding Templar symbolism into Scottish architecture, cultural rites, and eventually, speculative associations with emerging fraternal movements. The ghost ships that sailed north did not vanish. They became woven into the Scottish soul, their legacy camouflaged as legend, yet rooted in testimony too consistent to dismiss. Moving toward the west, the Atlantic route unveils a more enigmatic possibility, that the Templars reached lands unknown to medieval Europe long before the age of exploration. Cartographic fragments, ship logs preserved in private collections, and coded depictions in later manuscripts hint that the Order may have possessed advanced geographic knowledge gained from Eastern scholars, Mediterranean navigators, and ancient sources recovered beneath the Temple Mount. If even one ship crossed the Atlantic, it would explain the uncanny presence of pre-Columbian symbols resembling Templar seals found in scattered archaeological sites. This route represents the most controversial hypothesis, yet also the one that best explains why the Vatican never recovered the documents it feared most. The ocean, vast and unforgiving, became the perfect vault. Turning toward the south, the Portuguese connection reveals the most verifiable continuation of the Order. King Dinis of Portugal refused to persecute the Templars, reorganizing them under the new name Order of Christ, preserving their assets, leadership, and maritime ambitions. This lineage later funded and guided the Portuguese Age of Discoveries, influencing explorers like Prince Henry the Navigator. The ghost ships that arrived in Portugal did not disappear, they evolved. Their knowledge became the seed of global navigation, their symbols embedded into sails that would one day circle the world. This southern route stands as proof that the Templars did not die. They transformed into one of the most influential forces in maritime history. As this topic deepens, the emotional weight of these routes becomes undeniable. Each destination represents a different form of survival: anonymity, integration, expansion, transformation. The Order fractured not out of fear, but out of strategy, ensuring that no single discovery, no single betrayal, and no single attack could ever erase them again. By embracing dispersion, they achieved immortality. By the final breath of this fifth topic, the larger truth becomes irrefutable. The ghost ships were not the end of the Templars, they were the beginning of their second life. The Order dissolved publicly, but privately. It dissolved into the fabric of nations, institutions, and legends that would carry their influence into the future. Their destination was not a place, it was continuity. Their voyage was not escape, it was rebirth. The Templars did not vanish, they multiplied. Their legacy did not fade. It expanded until it touched the edges of history, exploration, myth, and transformation itself. In the conclusion of this vast and forbidden journey, The threads of every disappearance, every alliance, every secret manuscript, and every silent voyage converge into a single undeniable truth. The Knights Templar were never truly destroyed. They simply changed form, shedding the visibility that made them targets and embracing the secrecy that made them eternal. The Vatican believed it had executed the final chapter of the order with decrees, accusations, and fire, yet the ghost ships proved that the Templars had already written their own ending long before the Church attempted to write it for them. Their true legacy was not anchored in stone fortresses or battlefield victories, but in strategy, knowledge, and the ability to adapt across continents and centuries. In this first breath of the conclusion, we understand that the fall of the Templars was not a collapse. It was a transformation so complete that history itself could not hold them. As the conclusion deepens, the emotional weight of their disappearance sharpens into clarity. The ghost ships were not symbols of retreat. They were the vessels of a legacy engineered to survive beyond destruction. Each ship that vanished into the night carried more than relics and manuscripts. It carried the final will of the Order, the last oath of men who understood that survival required invisibility. Their identities dissolved into the waters they commanded, but their influence resurfaced across nations, in symbols etched into architecture, in financial systems that endure today, in navigational breakthroughs, in legends whispered by sailors, and in the enduring fascination that no empire could extinguish. That endurance is their triumph. Their erasure only made them more powerful. Moving into the core of this conclusion, the Templars' legacy reveals itself as a blueprint of resilience. Their fall taught the world that ideas cannot be burned, that knowledge cannot be seized, and that truth, once uncovered, does not die simply because authority commands it. The Vatican tried to silence them, kings tried to erase them, and time tried to dilute them, yet their story returned, persistent and luminous, centuries after their disappearance. Every rumor of hidden treasure, every sighting of a mysterious fleet, every rediscovered manuscript, and every symbol carved into foreign stone is a reminder that the Order refused finality. They mastered the art of survival not through force, but through foresight. And in that foresight lies their immortality. As the conclusion approaches its final breath, a deeper perspective emerges. What we call mystery was, for the Templars, a deliberate architecture of remembrance. They understood that secrecy would protect them, but they also understood that myth would preserve them. By disappearing, they ensured that every generation would search for them, question them, resurrect them. Their absence became their voice. Their silence became their prophecy. Their vanishing became the eternal spark that kept their legacy alive in the imagination and inquiry of humanity. And in the last breath of this immortal conclusion, the realization strikes with the force of destiny. The Knights Templar did not die in the flames of persecution. They transcended into legend, into influence, into a form of existence untouchable by any kingdom or church. Their story survived because they designed it to. Their legacy lives because they carried it into the unknown with purpose. The ghost ships did not vanish. They sailed into eternity. And as long as questions remain, as long as secrets whisper through the corridors of history, the Templars will never be gone. Their legacy is immortal, written not on the pages the Church preserved, but on the ones they carried away beneath the cover of night, trusting the future to discover what the past tried to bury. In this final moment, as the echoes of the ghost ships fade into the horizon of history, you stand before a truth that refuses to remain hidden. If this journey awakened your curiosity, challenged what you thought you knew, or revealed a world the Vatican tried to erase, then do not let this be where your exploration ends. Support this channel so we can continue uncovering the forbidden past, the silence chronicles, and the legends that shaped the world in shadows. Subscribe now, leave your comment about what you believe happened to the Templar fleet, and share this video with someone who seeks answers beyond the surface. Your engagement is the torch that keeps these forgotten stories alive, and together we carry the legacy forward.